Imagine a silence so deep you can hear the dust settling. You are standing in a hall that stretches further than the eye can see. Towering columns of white marble rise up into the shadows, supporting a ceiling painted to look like the night sky. The air smells of cedar wood, old parchment, and the salt of the nearby sea. It is quiet here, but it is not empty. Thousands upon thousands of scrolls rest in their cubbies, like sleeping souls waiting to be woken up. This is the place where humanity decided to remember everything. This is the great Library of Alexandria. For 300 years, this building was the brain of the world. It was the hard drive of human civilization. If you wanted to know how the stars moved, you came here. If you wanted to know how to heal a wound, or how to build a ship, or the history of lost empires, the answer was on these shelves. But today, if you go to Alexandria, in modern Egypt, and look for this place, you will find nothing. Not a single stone, not a single scroll. It is as if it never existed. So tonight, let us rebuild it. Let us walk through its doors one last time, meet the people who lived there, and uncover the mystery of how we lost our memory. To understand the library, you must first understand the city. Alexandria was not like other ancient cities. It wasn't grown organically like Athens or Rome. It was designed. It was a machine built for greatness. Alexander the Great dreamed it, but he died before the first stone was laid. His general Ptolemy made it real. Imagine arriving by ship in the year 250 BC. The first thing you would see, miles before you even reached the coast, was a light in the sky. The Pharaohs, the great lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the world. A tower of limestone, reaching 100 meters into the heavens, with a fire at the top that never went out. It was a symbol. It said to the world, here lies the light of civilization. But the real light wasn't the fire in the tower. It was the building that lay in the royal quarter, near the palace, the Maushion, the Temple of the Muses. We know it today as the library. The Ptolemy dynasty had a strange obsession. They didn't just want to rule the land, they wanted to own truth itself. They sent letters to every king and emperor in the known world, with a simple request. Send us your books. But they didn't rely on generosity. They relied on force. This is where the story gets dark. The library wasn't just filled by scholars, it was filled by aggressive acquisition. They established a law called the ship's funds. Every merchant vessel that docked in the massive harbor of Alexandria was immediately boarded by royal soldiers. They weren't looking for contraband, they weren't taxing spices or silk. They were searching for scrolls. If a captain had a book on board, perhaps a personal diary, a map or a copy of Homer's Odyssey, it was seized. It was taken to the library, where an army of scribes would hastily copy it. And here is the twisted part. The library kept the original. They gave the cheap copy back to the captain. They stole the authentic history of the world, one ship at a time, but it worked. At its height, estimates say the library held over 500,000 scrolls. It was a number so large, the human mind couldn't comprehend it. Who walked these halls? Imagine sitting at a long wooden table, the Mediterranean breeze blowing through the open windows. Sitting next to you is a man named Eratosthenes. He is the chief librarian, and he is currently solving a puzzle. He has heard that in a city far to the south, on the longest day of the year, vertical pillars cast no shadows. But here in Alexandria, on the same day, they do. Most people would ignore this, but Eratosthenes realized something profound. The earth must be curved. Using nothing but a stick and simple geometry, he calculated the circumference of the earth. He was right. He missed the exact number by only a few kilometers. Think about that. 2,000 years before satellites, a man in this library measured the planet. There were others. Aristarchus, who whispered the dangerous idea that the earth was not the center of the universe, but that it revolved around the sun. Herophilus, the father of anatomy, who dissected bodies to understand the nervous system. They were on the verge of an industrial revolution. They had designs for steam engines. They had complex gears. Humanity was ready to leap forward. And then, the darkness came. The destruction of the library wasn't a single event. It was a slow, painful tragedy. First came the fire of Julius Caesar in 48 BC, an accident of war that burned the warehouses. But the true end was more brutal. It involves a woman named Hypatia. She was the last great head of the library. A mathematician, an astronomer, and a philosopher. She was beloved by the city, a symbol of learning in an age that was turning towards religious extremism. As the Roman Empire collapsed, fear took over, science became suspicion, math became magic. In the year 415 AD, a mob dragged Hypatia from her chariot and murdered her in the streets. With her death, the spirit of the library died too. The scholars fled, the funding stopped, the scrolls that survived the fires were left to rot in the humidity, or used as fuel to heat the public baths. It is said that the works of Aristotle heated the water of Alexandria for 6 months. When we look at the stars tonight, we must wonder, where would we be now if those books had survived? Would we be living on Mars? Would we have cured diseases centuries ago? We will never know. The Library of Alexandria is gone, but the dream of collecting all knowledge, that dream is still alive. Now, let us leave the dusty libraries of Egypt. We travel west, past the Pillars of Hercules, into the deep, unforgiving waters of the Atlantic Ocean. We go in search of a memory that has haunted the human imagination for 2,300 years. The story of the lost continent, Atlantis. Many people think Atlantis is just a fairy tale for children, but the man who told us this story was not a storyteller. He was Plato, one of the greatest philosophers in history. In his dialogues, written around 360 BC, he describes a civilization that existed 9,000 years before his own time. He didn't describe a magical underwater city with mermaids. He described a superpower, a technological and military empire that ruled the world. Imagine approaching the island by ship. It wasn't just a rock in the ocean, it was an engineering marvel. Plato describes the city as a series of concentric rings, alternating circles of land and water. 2 rings of land and 3 rings of water, surrounding a central island. Bridges connected the rings, and beneath the bridges, massive canals allowed ships to sail directly to the heart of the city. The walls of the outer ring were covered in brass, the inner ring was covered in tin, and the central citadel, the home of the kings, was covered in a red metal that glowed like fire. Plato called it orichalcum. Today we don't know what this metal was. Some say it was a gold-copper alloy, others say it is a lost element, gone forever. In the center stood the Temple of Poseidon. It was a building of impossible wealth. The walls were silver, the pinnacles were gold, and the roof was made of solid ivory. Inside there was a statue of the god Poseidon driving a chariot pulled by 6 winged horses, so tall that his head touched the ceiling. The island was rich. Hot and cold springs flowed naturally from the ground, supplying massive bathhouses. Elephants roamed the forests. The soil was so fertile that it produced 2 harvests a year. For generations the Atlanteans lived in harmony. They were half god, half human. They possessed wisdom, kindness and power. But power is a poison. Over centuries, the divine blood within them became diluted. The human nature took over. They became greedy. They became arrogant. They stopped looking at the stars and started looking at their neighbors' lands. They launched a massive war, conquering Africa as far as Egypt, and Europe as far as Italy. But the universe demands balance. Plato tells us that the gods saw this corruption. They gathered to deliver a punishment. It happened in a single day and a single night of misfortune. The earth began to scream. The ground shook violently. But the true horror came from the sea. A wall of water, darker than the night sky, rose up and swallowed the island whole. The rings of water, the walls of orichalcum, the temple of Poseidon, everything vanished into the mud. Plato writes that the ocean became impassable, filled with the mud and debris of the sunken empire. Did it really happen? Or was it a warning? A warning that no matter how advanced we become, nature can hit the reset button whenever it wants. From the water, we move to the sand. We travel to the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. Here, rising from the yellow dust, stood the greatest city of the ancient world, Babylon. Babylon was a city of bricks and noise, a city of merchants and warriors. But in the center of this harsh desert, there was a miracle. The Hanging Gardens. This story is not about war. It is about love. The year is 600 BC. King Nebuchadnezzar II is the ruler of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He is a man of iron and stone. But he married a woman named Amytis of Media. Amytis was a princess from the north. She grew up in green mountains, surrounded by forests, cool streams and wild flowers. When she arrived in Babylon, she fell into a deep depression. She looked out her window and saw nothing but flat, dry desert. She missed the smell of the rain. She missed the color green. So, the king decided to fight nature itself. He couldn't take his wife to the mountains, So he brought the mountains to her. He ordered the construction of a man-made mountain in the middle of the city. The Greeks called it a wonder of the world. It wasn't just a garden on the ground. It was a series of tiered terraces, rising up into the sky like a green pyramid. Think of it like a modern skyscraper, covered in vegetation. Huge stone pillars supported layers of soil deep enough to grow massive oak and cedar trees. But the real mystery was the water. How do you keep a forest alive in a desert where it never rains? Archaeologists believe they used a system that wouldn't be reinvented for centuries. The chain pump. Slaves would turn massive wheels day and night, lifting water from the Euphrates River far below, carrying it to the very top of the gardens. From there the water cascaded down in artificial waterfalls, cooling the air and creating a mist that could be seen for miles. It was an air-conditioned paradise in a baking oven. Imagine walking there. The noise of the city fades away. You hear the sound of running water. The smell of exotic flowers hits you. You see pomegranates, figs, and walnuts growing above your head. For a brief moment, humanity conquered the desert. But Babylon fell. The Persians came. Then the Greeks. Then the sands of time. The mud bricks crumbled. The pumps stopped turning. The trees died. Today, if you go to the site of Babylon, you will see ruins. But you will not find a single trace of the gardens. Some historians say they were destroyed by earthquakes. Others say they never existed at all, that they were just a soldier's dream, a poetic exaggeration. Did we dream them? Or is the dust of those flowers still mixed with the sand of Iraq, waiting to be found? Our final journey takes us to a different time, a newer world. The year is 1587. The place is Roanoke Island, North America. 115 English settlers arrive to build a new life. Men, women, and children. They build houses. They plant crops. The first English child is born there. Her name was Virginia Dare, but supplies ran low. Their leader, John White, had to sail back to England to get help. He promised to return in 3 months, but war broke out in Europe. He got stuck. It took him 3 years to come back. When he finally stepped off the ship onto Roanoke Island, he was met with silence. The houses were gone, taken apart neatly. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, no bodies. The dinner tables were not set. The tools were not scattered. It was as if 115 people had simply evaporated into the mist. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post of the fort. Croatoan. Did they move to the nearby Croatoan Island? Did they join the local tribes? Or were they taken by something else? John White tried to search for them, but a massive storm forced him to leave. He never saw his family again. To this day, no one knows the truth. If you walk through the forests of Roanoke tonight, listen closely. Some say you can still hear the whispers of the lost colony, drifting through the trees. History is full of blank pages. Alexandria, Atlantis, Babylon, Roanoke, things we built, things we lost. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the shadows of the past. Sleep well, and may your dreams be as vast as history itself.